Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. And this afternoon, I've got a full house. I've got Lawrence Conley, Ian Conroy, and Liam Carrigan. We're all in for the next hour to talk about Celtic. Please join us in a chat. Lots to discuss. We're going to have a breakdown, blow by blow, what happened last week and where it leaves us. There was a coming together of Celtic supporters who signed an open letter. Lots of fan groups got on board. The club reacted. We'll react to that reaction. And we'll ask the question, where does it leave Brendan Rodgers? I'm going to start with yourself, Lawrence. The fan movement, the coming together. How great was it to see that we're galvanised as a fan base?
Listen, it's brilliant. And I think the manager's probably happy to see it, as well as the captain. You know, both of them all summer calling out for new players, telling us, you know, that's what was needed. Where does it leave Brendan? I suppose he's here till May. I can't see him staying after this. So we'll probably end up with will we get a manager as good? No. And it's down to Brendan to knuckle down. You know, I think he's by far the best manager in the league.
To start off with, Lawrence, regarding the actual fan movement, we'll stick to the fan movement first. We'll get on to Brendan and what he's actually going to do with this team, what our starting 11 is going to look like, and if he is the manager that many of us believe him to be. So the fan movement, what do you think prompted such a galvanisation? Was it just an ongoing issue that we've been talking about for 8 years? Was it the Kairat being the final straw? Was it the transfer window? Combination of the above? What do you think brought everybody together?
I think it was last year. We got a glimpse of what Brendan could achieve. You know, and I think everyone I spoke to over the summer was saying, you know what, we're maybe 3 or 4 players away from being a really decent Champions League team. You know, look what we achieved. We ran by him so close. And, you know, Brendan's up the expectation level. You know, before he came, we weren't expected to do trebles, you know, first time round. Since he's first time round, we're now expecting a treble every season. That's our target beginning of the season. Last year, he really showed us what we could achieve in Europe. And we thought, a wee bit of investment in this team, and we can push on and go further. You know, and it's such a disappointment that obviously it would appear, you know, with Brendan's comments over the summer, there's people apparently aren't happy with him being at the club. You know, somebody needs to find out who that is. Is it people within Celtic working against him? Or Celtic themselves just happy to win in Scotland and look at Europe as a bonus? Because the fans aren't happy with that. You know, you've got to be, you know, we've got aspirations to be world class. And I think we state that we're going to improve season and season. Well, this season hasn't been an improvement. You know, it doesn't matter what happens between now and May, it's not been an improvement. So to miss your targets so early in the season before August is out is ridiculous. And it's not like the money wasn't there. You know, the Celtic statement just for me, just a load of nonsense. I've seen people say it was made by AI.
We're going to pick away at the statement in just a second, Lawrence, but let's talk about fans first and what it is that's tipped us over the edge. You mentioned the Bayern Munich game. Liam, if you're thinking about a one-each draw away from home where you're seconds away from taking Bayern Munich into extra time, and actually when you think even back to the Celtic Park game where we score a goal, was it legitimate? I don't know. It was one of the ones where Kuhn scores an early goal. Things could have been so much different. If you go back to that, right? If you go back to that game, 18th of February, just seems like a lifetime away. How far away were we, do you think, at that point after that game when Brendan Rodgers is spoken to on the park? How far away do you think we were from a team that could do that again this season?
If we had kept that team intact and replaced Kyogo, we'd probably be there again, I think. I think it's that simple. It's just all we had to do was maintain what we had, and we've not done that. Kuhn has gone out the door. We haven't replaced him. You know, the just players are unsettled. You know, as much as I loved Eisen, if he wanted to go, this summer was the time to get the maximum value out of him. But we couldn't do that because we didn't have replacements lined up. And again, the stupid thing was we went out and sold one of our best assets right at the start of the window. So immediately, every club in Europe knows we've got 16 million quid on top of whatever we were going to spend before.
Mm-hmm.
So every player that was, 3-4 million is suddenly 7 or 8 million. And Celtic don't get to turn around and complain about that because they've done exactly the same thing to other clubs in terms of, we know you want this player, so you're going to pay through the nose for him. That's business. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And the fans, to get to your point, I think the fans, it's a cumulative thing. It's been building up for a couple of years now. But
at least
the one thing, now I won't presume to speak for all Celtic fans because obviously I don't, but people ask me, for example, what is it you love about Celtic and what is it you don't like about Rangers, right? I would say I like the history of Celtic. I like the kind of honesty that we have, our background, where we come from, who we are, our culture. I don't like Rangers because of their arrogance more than anything else. And that is the thing that I think the Celtic board showed at the weekend, which I think has put a lot of people over the edge, because that was arrogance. That was, you're not even important enough that we're going to type up a proper statement. We're going to get a computer to do it for us. That was the level of contempt with which we were treated. And I think that's a tipping point for a lot of people.
Tipping point, absolutely. It was in response, of course, to Celtic fans coming together with a 7-point open letter asking the club to engage, basically asking the club to engage with its fans. We are not customers. This is the difference between any old company and a football club. We're not customers, we're fans, and that's different because it works in two different ways. The first one is if you are unhappy with the service you get from any other company and you're a customer, you can leave and go elsewhere. They know they have us over a barrel with us because we're football fans. So we needed for me to mobilise, and I think the Celtic support has. If I take you back, Ian, we're talking about tipping points. Lawrence Connolly started off the show by saying we had a glimpse into what Brendan Rodgers could have achieved as a Celtic manager. And that glimpse was on the 18th of February, where we draw 1-1 with Bayern Munich away from home. And we're leading right up until the 94th minute of that game. The goal coming from Nicholas Kuhn, of course. The starting 11 that night, let's have a look at it. Kasper Schmeichel in goals, Alistair Johnston at right back, Jeffrey Schlupp at left back. We have the central defensive partnership of Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty. The three in the midfield is Arnie Engels, Callum McGregor, Rio Atati. And then up top, we started with Kuhn on the right, Jota on the left, Maeda through the middle. So you look at that team, Ian, and you say, well, other than Schlupp, Kuhn and Jota through injury, we could field that same side. Where do you think we could have improved that side on the park when Brendan Rodgers said, I've told the club what I need and we need to continue to progress? At what point do you think you look at that side and you go, right, all we need is a few tweaks to that side? That's a very, very strong side, as was proved that night. I think back to that game when Johnson was getting the ball from Kasper and he's turning defence into attack. It was an incredible performance by Celtic on that particular evening. So at that point, how far away were we, Ian, from being a European side this season? I think we've got a few issues, unfortunately, with the signal there. I mean, I'm going to throw my tuppence worth into this. I'm looking at Schlupp and thinking that was always short term because we knew that Kieran Tierney had been offered the pre-contract. Obviously, Celtic were the last ones to actually announce that. So that was a step up. So you're looking at that going, right, we're better than that team that managed to get the 1-1 draw. Kuhn leaves the football club. He's at the end of his cycle. I don't have an issue with that. You've got to replace him, though. Jota gets injured, and you've got to replace him as well. And bearing in mind, we were running with Maeda through the middle, through necessity, Lawrence. Yes, he did very well as a centre-forward, but the reason he was playing there is because we failed to replace Kyogo. So we were already a bit hamstrung by the inability of the board to get the job done. But that, for me, gives you an insight into where we were, and you compare that to the team that went out against Kyra in the qualifiers, and it just beggars belief. And I just think that we've watched it blow by blow, Liam. We've watched this every single day. We talk about it. We need to get the job done. We need to get the work done. So the fan groups come together and there's an open letter which has now been signed by close to 500 different groups, associations, Celtic supporters clubs. Lawrence, how buoyed were you by the fact that the big fan groups, we're talking the affiliation of Irish Celtic Supporters Club, the Association of Irish Celtic Supporters Clubs, the Celtic Supporters Association, and the affiliation of Celtic Supporters Clubs, 3 different groups, all getting behind the no confidence in the board. How buoyed were you over the weekend, Lawrence? Because this was almost like, for me, it was an example of how to stabilise as a fan movement, because there's no fracture here.
I think it's absolutely huge. I can't remember the association even criticising the old board. You know, they kind of always seem to go with the board. So I think it's amazing they've done it. I don't know if buoyed's the right word. You know, it's hard to feel any joy about anything in this situation where you've had 3 months for Celtic to do the business properly. We get the warning shot when you get knocked out of the Champions League. They've still got time to put it right, and they don't. And it's just that, and then that letter, absolutely crazy. I mean, it's great to see, you know, so many organisations coming together, including obviously the 3 main ones. See the Wakes put out a statement as well. It's what difference is this going to make? You know, are the board that out of touch that they didn't know this was coming?
Yes.
You know, they must have seen this coming. They must have been even watching Acsom, who knows? There are other podcasts too, perhaps watching them or speaking to Celtic fans after the Champions League exit and going, we really need people in. You know, Brendan been giving it all summer.
The board spoke to Celtic fans? Are you suggesting that they did that?
Well, mate, surprisingly, some of them claim to be Celtic fans. But you've got to wonder where the ambition is. What is it they were trying to achieve in the transfer window and how it went so wrong? We had loads of opportunities to put it right. Absolutely loads. And it's not for want of money or UEFA regulations. You know, as far as I know, every team in Europe has to play by them. So, you know, it's not something special to Celtic alone. So it's great that everyone's come together, but it's very sad it's come to this, because I thought we had a great opportunity to keep Brendan as manager and really start to build as a European team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the moment after Bayern Munich, and the reason I use that is because it did give us that glimpse that Lawrence spoke about. And you look at the team and you think to yourself, right, let's go by the rule that Jim Orr talks about, Liam. I'm going to come to you in a moment, Ian. Hopefully everything's cool, mate, because I'm really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. And Jim Orr says, you know, you've got to improve by 2 players net every single transfer window. Well, if you did that, you know, you would build a team capable of competing like we did last season. If you don't do it, then the downfall is rapid, it's vast, and it's steep. And that's exactly what we've seen to our detriment this time round, Liam. So I'm looking at that team and I'm thinking, right, you know, we're probably talking 3 players as it stood that really would improve that starting 11 against Bayern Munich. 3 quality players. That's all you're talking about. We don't need to be bringing in 10 or 11 players in the transfer window. I've always said that's kind of bad business if you feel you need to bring in that amount of players. And Kunle, so perhaps 4. So you're looking at 4. And if you were to do that transfer window after transfer window, when it comes to the point of Maeda, and we'll get your view on this, Liam, when it comes to the point of Maeda, or indeed Hatate, who was mentioned as well by Brendan Rodgers, and they come to the end of their cycle, then it's okay because you've had 2 or 3 very good transfer windows behind you, and the players that you brought in previously have started coming to the fore, and they can step into the position. I mean, we talk about the rise of Matt O'Reilly. Remember, there was periods of time when the soon-to-be Nottingham Forest boss Ange Postecoglou favoured Darren Moy over Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly wasn't just in the building, sensational £26 million player overnight. That took time. That took 2 or 3 transfer windows, let's say, if you want to talk about it in blocks of that, Liam. But the problem we've now got is we've had quite a few bad transfer windows going back to Brendan's reintroduction to Celtic, and even before then, because it's slim pickings actually in the final season under Ange, isn't it? You're talking players coming in like Alistair Johnston and Moy, for example, great. But there was a lot of duds that came in during those transfer windows as well, Liam. So when you're looking at that and you're looking at pushing on I'm going to go back to something Lon said. Does it come down to the ambition or lack of? Are they thinking, you know what, if we get 1 in 4 Champions League campaigns, we're doing okay? Does it come down to lack of ambition for you?
Yeah, it's managed mediocrity. They're quite happy to just be that wee bit ahead of Rangers. And the truth is, since 2012, since they died, we should not be comparing ourselves to them or indeed to any other team in Scotland. Our metric for progress should be teams like Bruges, teams like Ajax, teams like Benfica, similarly sized clubs in smaller European leagues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, take the example of Bruges, right? We got a draw with them last season. Could have beat them, or they could have beat us. It was a pretty evenly matched game.
That was a CCV OG game, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Ridiculous OG, yeah.
Yeah, and yet they went out and absolutely destroyed a Rangers team that we could barely muster a shot on target against. And that's the progress, right? We were on the same level as them last season.
Mm-hmm.
They sold a few players. They brought in more quality. Like Jim Orr said, they had that incremental upgrade of the squad. And they absolutely annihilated Rangers twice. And they are going to go on to, I think, have a very good season in the Champions League. You know, I would say they're a good contender to make the last 16 at least.
Yeah.
It's because they were in the same place we were, but at that point last season in February, our paths diverged. They went forward, we went back. And that's why we are where we are now, and that's why Bruges are where they deserve to be now.
That's quite a good yardstick, actually, when you think about it, Ian. Hopefully everything works when I ask you this question, mate. We obviously could have beaten them at home. It was 1 each, and it was an unusual kind of goal that we scored for them via Cameron Carter-Vickers. We ended up above them in the league table in Europe last season, yet they have shown the ambition, whereas we have not. Is it a case of we're overcautious? I mean, I was listening to an interview with Steve McGowan the other day there, I think it was yesterday, and he was talking about being run by a team of accountants. You know, our boardroom is run by a team of accountants. We're overcautious. We're constantly overcautious, rather than having that ambition and the boldness, Ian, to say, right, let's bring in the 3 players. Let's not spend, and by the way, we didn't spend a lot of money, because I was looking at that this morning, and we'll get onto the subject of the UEFA sustainability rules, which has been cited as a reason for not spending or making things difficult, when actually it shouldn't be. But we didn't spend a lot of money. And there was this for me as well, Ian, and it came through in the statement, which we're going to get onto, where we're not demanding that we go out and spend 20 and 30 million pounds on a player. We're not that daft. I think the condescending nature of that and the tone of that statement was as if we were demanding that type of spend. It's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is having a level above a 250 grand player that was a club signing for left back, or a 1.5 million pound striker who again was a club signing in Yamada for centre forward. And that's why he's never been classed as a replacement for Kyogo. I'll come back to Ian. I don't know if there's a few issues technically there, but Lawrence, on to you on that point.
It's the complete lack of delivery on the transfer side. You know, it's too little, too late what they've done. You know we can't spend 20, 30 million quid on one player. But see if they'd went out and delivered, say, 8 million quid players, where'd we go? And they'd done it before the Champions League playoff. We're trying. We're giving the manager the tools to do the right
direction. Yep.
You know, but we're going, Brendan, we're not going to give you the tools, even though you and the captain have said you need them.
Mm-hmm.
We won't give you them. We know this is a potential 40 million loss coming up if we don't go through, but we won't give you them. Brendan's on record saying, listen, he wanted people in. Kyogo's went out. We know Jota's injured. You know, KT wasn't set, still hasn't set the head of the light at left back. You're going, look, we really need some guys in here. Brendan was on record, he wanted to keep Greg Taylor. Didn't happen. You know, it's the complete lack of accountability at the club that seemed that they think, yeah, this is fine. You know, not giving the manager the tools he needs. Yeah, that's okay. You know, we tried in the last few days. I mean, that letter, I think I said in the group chat, you could have just put it in 10 words. You're too stupid to understand how good we are.
That's what it says.
Basically what we're saying, wasn't it?
That's
you know,
what it said. Yeah.
Yeah. I think completely underestimates the support. You know, nobody's going out and saying 20, 30 million quid, go and spend that on one player. Oh, there's Dele Alli. Sign him up. We know the wages would be ridiculous. What we are looking for is ambition to take us further, not something that, you know, we clearly went in to this season with a weaker team and a weaker squad. When you look at the number of players we've cleared out, we must have brought some amount of money in over the summer. I don't even know. Even with the 2 late signings, I think we're probably still in profit.
Well, massively. I was looking at this morning. We're £19.5 million in profit if you want to add the add-ons onto it. So we're massively in profit.
Yeah. So the chat about UEFA regulations, we're in profit. We're not even come close to the number there. And you know the statement says, "Oh, we need that, you know, contingency." It wasn't that long ago that the chairman was telling us they understood that money in the bank is no use. So what's changed from, you know, January? I think it was the chairman made that statement to now. Oh, now it's a good thing to have it. You know, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Over the last few days, people who may not have been as invested in this emotionally, Ian, and may not have the knowledge of what's happening at Celtic, they've asked me the question, people in the media have asked me the question, you know, what have Celtic fans got to moan about? You've won all these trophies. You win season upon season. You have spent money. This is another thing they constantly say. You've spent money, rather than look at the net and say, right, okay, if you spend, you know, 20 million pound less, if you make 20 million pound in a transfer window, that shows that you've lost quality. You've lost quality from your playing staff. So the net does matter, despite what some people in the media try to claim. But this is not a knee-jerk reaction, Ian. We're just going to give you a tester here on your signal, mate. This is not a knee-jerk reaction. This is, you know, 7 out of 9 failures to qualify for the Champions League out of the qualifiers. Unfortunately, it looks as though we're losing, Ian, on the signal. But Liam, this is a thing that I keep constantly saying when I'm asked the question. You know, this isn't about a set of supporters that kick off because we're not happy that we're no spending money in one transfer window and we're not getting the profile of players that we want in one transfer. This is year upon year. This is the same conversations we've had on Acsom for 8 years now. And in terms of the Champions League qualification, it is really just a failure to be prepared for it. Going into these games, having to play James Forrest, having to play a player in Yang who we now know didn't want to be at the football club. You know, having to play a guy in Adamida who had to take a penalty in a penalty shootout who didn't want to be at the football club. He says, oh, it happened all very quick. Just join up the dots on the Adamida system. And you know that has been ongoing for some time. And you can look at Brendan Rodgers' comments about that wage drops in your bank account, you play for this football club. He was on his way out at some point, by hook or by crook, in that window. Yet we're asking him to go up and take a penalty kick that could be the difference between a £20 million shortfall of dropping from the Champions League to the Europa League. So it's just that real failure. And why, Liam, why are we constantly trying to get the business done in the here and now? You know, we shouldn't be scrambling about in this window for this qualifier. That business should be getting done at least in January, if not before.
It's simply because the board are incompetent. They're not football people. They are not qualified to make football judgments. But you have people like Dermot Desmond and Peter Lawwell coming in and saying, I think we should sign this guy, I think we should sign that guy. And they'll turn around and tell me and you, oh, what do you know about football? What do you know about running a football team? Well, probably about as much as you do, mate, yet you're the one making the decisions. You know, that's the reality. It's ridiculous. But that is the root of the problem, is people getting ideas above their station and thinking that because they've got money, they can do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they dine out on the success of the team. And what I keep saying is it's in spite of the poor preparation. We've had lengthy discussions over the last couple of weeks, Lawrence, about the fact that it's so far gone in relation to the interference the non-football people in the football decisions, that we have got basically a body of evidence dating right back to Tony Mowbray, in relation to players coming and going without the say-through or the actual football manager of the football club. So it's not something, it's not, trying to paint a narrative that it's Brendan Rodgers and he's the guy that controls and he's the guy that wants more and wants to push the envelope. It's not a Brendan Rodgers issue. It's whoever's been in the hot seat all the way back to Tony Mowbray. In fact, all the way back to Gordon Strachan, if you want to bring in the Paddy McCourt example.
This isn't even, trying to make football decisions. You get the biggest game of the season in terms of the revenue you can generate from it. On the 20th, was it 20th of August, first leg? So that's your biggest game. We know that's a £40 million plus game it is. When should you sign players for it? Before or after? It came down to that. That's simple. And someone at Celtic come up with, well, after.
You could ask that question, Lawrence, of any primary school kid with no interest in football. Here's the situation. What is the solution? What do you think would be the best way to be prepared for that game? Yeah. And your three options would be sign players before it, sign players after it, or don't sign any players. And 99% of kids at age 9 would be able to answer that question. Yet our board can't answer that question.
Now, they had the equivalent of a kind of phone a friend, the lifelines. Because the manager's telling them, we need it before. The captain's going, we need it before. And they've got experience of, well, we've messed this up quite a few times in the past few years. When we wait till after, should we wait till after again? It's crazy, absolutely crazy.
And what then happens after the fans come together and ask 7 very relevant and reasonable questions of the Celtic board is that we get the statement. And the statement is obviously, dropped out there on a Saturday night. And when you obviously read through it, if you've managed to get through it, 1,030 odd words, I think it was, verbose. This is the definition of that. Insincere, I would say, Liam. It's contradictory. It's very much contradictory as well, because I'm going to bring something up here, and we always use it as a football club, right? The club's model. They always use this term, the club's model. And it's they use it as if to say, right, we've got this model, this ultra secret model, like, they're playing Moneyball or something, and they've tapped into some kind of cheat code that nobody else has got. What is the club's model? Let's talk about that for a minute, Liam, because I've thought about this since the statement came out. They always hide behind, we've got a model, the model works because we win cups and trophies, right? The model is simply this. We try and buy as cheap as we can and sell for as much as we can. They don't have a model. That's not a model, Liam. I mean, that isn't as sophisticated a model as they try to make out that it is.
See, this is the thing. Occasionally, we get lucky. We get a Dembele, we get an O'Reilly, we get a Jota, right? But that's down to luck rather than design, right? If you're operating in that market, you are occasionally going to get a star who rises above the mediocrity. But 9 times out of 10, for every, with the greatest of respect to the player in question, I don't have any grudge for him personally, but for every Matt O'Reilly, you're going to get 5 Yangs. That's the reality of it, It's not a sustainable model. And the thing is, they are basing it around figures that are less than we were spending under Martin O'Neill 20 years ago. If you look at the actual money that is going in and out of Celtic, we're bringing in more than we've ever brought before. But we're spending a comparable amount to what we were spending 20 years ago. Yeah. How does that work? Make it make sense. How is it that we have a spending model that is 20 years behind when we are bringing in more money than we have ever done in Scottish football history, not just Celtic's history?
Yeah, and actually paying the CEO, I think the figure Lawrence mentioned last week, paying the CEO double, almost twice as much as what we were in that time period, if you want to go back to the O'Neill times. I'm really keen to bring in your comment section. What is Celtic's club model that they keep banging on about? Yeah. Because I don't think it's sophisticated. What is it, Lawrence? Come on, let us know the secret.
Frankie Boyle cracked it, didn't it? It's the setting in championship manager. You have to bring in £20 million of sales for every loan signing that you want to bring in.
That's it. That's the model.
That looks like it, doesn't it?
Frankie knows the answer, absolutely. The Urban Culture, always a pleasure to welcome you onto the show. You're on the YouTube. Thanks, all our new subscribers, for getting involved. I've had a lot of comments from people who have just started tuning in. So brilliant. Thanks for getting involved, and thanks for all the old school, like the Urban Culture, who have been commenting for a long time on the show. We need the supporters to back the team 100%. I want to focus on that a bit today, because we've been so focused on the noise and the chaos that's happening outside of the actual team and outside of the fact that we do have a fixture coming up. And I do want to focus on that. These players need a lift. Give the board hell before and at half time. There's a lot of people talking about what we can do next. We're going to try and break this down. We've spoken, first of all, about the open letter and what caused Celtic fans to come together. The next bit was the statement. Unfortunately, we've lost Ian. Ian will be back next week, hopefully, if everything's well with the tech and his fitness. He will pass the fitness test. In terms of the statement, I've spoken about, jargon, because the club's model has become jargon to me. The Frankie Boyle explanation is more of an explanation than we've ever had from the club, Lawrence. So thanks for explaining that, Frankie boy. The other thing that I thought was condescending, patronising, was the quote, throwing money at transfers and contracts, as if we're all just running about with our hair on fire, Lawrence, saying, sign this one for 20 and sign that for... What they're forgetting right now is the money we brought in for Matt O'Reilly, 26 million, that we then spent on Engels, Ida and Trusty. That money was only £26 million because of their negotiation ability or lack of. It wouldn't have been £26 million. You could have shaved £2 or £3 million at least off of the Engels and the Ida transfers, and probably another one or two off Austin Trusty.
Ida, let's be honest, if they hadn't messed up the first transfer window where Ida comes in and loaned, they had an option to buy. But they messed up that transfer window and had to grab Ida on the last day. Mm-hmm. So if they want, but we spent, and why did we spend $9 million in Adam Ida? Because you messed up the previous transfer window,
100%,
and then had to rush it through and didn't get an option to buy in. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of going, well, thanks for pointing out you spent a bit of money on him, but that was down to you. The letter itself, it's just absolutely crazy. There's no contrition. There's no.
They believe, but they believe this, Lawrence. They actually believe what they're typing here.
I'll tell you what, they believe it that much that no one's willing to put their name to it. So even, if they believe that, put your name to it. What they don't want to do is address the issues. They don't want to acknowledge them, and they don't want to address them.
Remember, I mean, you're talking there about AI. You're talking about AI, right? What I'm going to say here is that AI is not a bad word. AI is not a bad word. AI is a tool that you can use in relation to setting up or checking for grammar, etc., etc. But that's not what we're talking about here. This is so insincere, Lawrence, that it would lead you to believe that it has been written by a bot.
Yeah, 100%.
Completely.
But whether it's written by a bot or not, it's the content. There's no contrition. There's no, we've got an issue, we need to put this right. It's everything's brilliant. What are you talking about? We know what we're doing. You don't understand. UEFA regulations, we're the only club they apply to. It's just absolutely crazy. You don't understand the domino effect in transfers. When we leave it this late in the window, then somebody gets snapped. Well, we do. That's why we told you to get it done early to avoid that. It's kind of things they highlight and you're going, well, actually, when you look at the domino effect, that was down to you leaving it to the last minute. If you get Dollarberg done the week before, doesn't matter what Chelsea players gets injured. You've already got Dollarberg signed. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking, but everything they're highlighting, saying, "Oh, it's because of it." Well, that's only an issue because of your incompetence.
Are you deliberately, Lawrence, calling him Dollarberg, or is that just a wee Freudian slip?
Yeah. But you're looking at it and go, Brendan's been asking for ages. He said those people don't want him at the club, and it's got to the extent this transfer window. You go, are people deliberately taking their time with transfers so they don't happen? Or they've got as much, to do their worst on it. It's like that guy at work gets told to do something, he doesn't want to do it, he goes in a go slow. All right, yeah. No bother, I'll get that done for you. This is what it looks like it's happened here. And you've got to wear, wonder where Dermot is in this. You know, Brendan's obviously his man. He brought him to the club twice. His manager's asked to be backed. Where's Dermot sitting? Brendan said the football side had done their business ages ago. As far as I know, it was done, you know, the end of May. It was over to the guys to negotiate the contract.
Yeah.
So it's Dermot looking at these and thinking, do you know what? That's the way I like a Dermot Desmond business to be run. I like it to be represented by these guys, putting out statements that you unite a customer base against us. You know, they could have said, look, we understand that this transfer wasn't good enough. You know, window wasn't good enough. We don't want this to happen again. We're going to have, you know, an internal review of everything over the next week between the board, the football side, and the business side. Dermot Desmond will chair it, and we'll come back to you, and we'll go to the supporters organisation in a week and a half, and we'll give you our findings and give you the plan for the way forward.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what? With the placated probably the majority of fans, we said, you know what? Give them a week and a half. It sounds like they're going to take things on board and look at things. What have we done now? Nothing wrong here. What are you talking about?
Dug the hole deeper. Their heads are in the sand. I mean, the throwing money at transfer bit that you pointed out there, Lawrence, and the fact that we left it so late that it cost us money. They also cite players' agents and other clubs leaving it late. The actual thing that I can barely believe they typed this. We recognise the importance of timing. They recognise the importance of timing. What a contradiction it is. Another bit was that player trading strategy. They're going to stick to their player trading strategy responsibly and consistently. Well, it is irresponsible to fail to strengthen before a Champions League qualifier, and it's consistently underprepared. So that it's just words. It's a word sandwich. It's corporate jargon, and it says nothing to the fan base who basically want that communication. And within the 7-point open letter, communication comes in time and time again. But Lawrence, as you say, it would have been so much easier. You know what? I was talking about this morning to a friend of mine, and I said that if someone has been promoted to the point, and I do believe this, and the reason I'm saying this is because Michael Nicholson is the CEO of Celtic Football Club. That was his entry level into the world of being a CEO. He's a rookie CEO, and his first job in that position is at Celtic. Now, would you, at this point, Liam, I know we've done it in the past, would you give a manager his first gig at Celtic? No, you wouldn't. You absolutely wouldn't do that. We have done it in the past. You wouldn't do that, right? You wouldn't give a rookie, their first kind of hurl at the job to see if they're any good at it, at that level of position at Celtic. But that's where he is. So seeing that scenario where the heat's getting turned up on them last week, and it's like, what do we do? What do we do? And you're looking at your PR team and you're thinking, right, they're all part of this problem. They're all part of the clique. They're all part of the jargon that we constantly spew out. The fact that we don't engage with the fans. You know what he should have done there, Liam, is admitted that PR's not the club's strength through experience and said, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm actually going to get a consultant and I'm going to get somebody in to actually consult with in terms of how to deal with this problem. You know, because we're trying to do that in certain other fields. We're bringing in specialists, Liam. They needed a specialist to come in and try and work that PR machine. They've done it in-house. They've done it on the cheap. They've fired out, by the way, after their hit piece in The Sun on Brendan Rodgers, right? And I said this last week. Imagine having that meeting and saying, right, how do we deal with this? All right, what we'll do is we'll give a wee story to The Sun first, right? That will just set us up, and then we'll slip out a statement on Saturday night where we accept no responsibility, and as Lawrence says, show no contrition whatsoever, no reflection whatsoever. I mean, who at what point would sign that off, Liam? Well, the Celtic hierarchy did.
I mean, here's the thing, right? Now, I think at this point we can say it's public knowledge that the minutes of last week's meeting with fan groups are out there for people who want to see them. They are various YouTubers, bloggers, whatever, have talked about it, myself included. So we know what was discussed at the meeting between Nicholson and what he thought would be friendly, compliant fan groups on Friday, which is why those groups were invited specifically, right? Was because historically, now I'm not supposed to have a go at them, but historically, the groups that were at that meeting on Friday have not been that confrontational in dealing with the board when other fan groups would have been, right? So they thought it was a friendly audience. Now, Nicholson sat down with them, and if you look at what he said on Friday and then compare it to what came out in the Sun the next day and what was in that statement, there are only two conclusions you can draw. He was either lying or he's incompetent. It has to be one or the other. Because just take the Sun story for example, right? He said on Friday, and I believe I'm quoting this accurately, that the board are in complete lockstep with the manager when it comes to signings, and nothing is done without the manager's approval, right? Brendan's already told us that's not the case.
Yep.
Right? He's already told us that. And if that were the case, if the board and the manager were completely on the same page, that Sun story would never have been allowed to happen. Now, if Nicholson said that on Friday in good faith, believing that to be the case, and then somebody else leaked that story to the Sun, he's grossly incompetent because he should have known that there was a leak within his own department. Because it's clearly somebody at executive level at Celtic who put that story to the Sun.
No, without a doubt. And
again, they're all sitting around. They've come up with, they've just used ChatGPT. They've got the statement. Right, whose name will we put on it? And they're all going, "Oh, no, mine.
No,
no me," because they know how bad it is. Well, I'm not signing it. You sign it. You know what I mean? You knew how bad it was. They wouldn't put their name to it.
No, and again, with regards to that, Lawrence, the follow-up to that is what we're going to get on to next before we speak about Brendan and where it leaves him. For anyone who's asking, Ange Postecoglou is at the Nottingham Forest training ground as we speak. I know that a lot of people had been linking, and there had been previous links of Brendan Rodgers to that job. Kieran comes in. Who's going to get the Forest job? Ange or BR? Well, Ange is there right now, Kieran. I think the chances are he's going to be announced as the Nottingham Forest manager. Skinhead Boy 67 allowing Lowell back into the boardroom was a shocking idea. This is my concern, Skinhead. My concern is that, they might set someone up as a kind of like fall guy, if you like, and someone might lose their job over this. And I say might because it wouldn't surprise me if nothing changed, but it's just the shifting of the deck chairs, isn't it? It's like there's already a clique that's wider. There's a wider clique than the boardroom. People that are on the board are in the boardroom on match day. That boardroom is full on match day of other people who are shareholders or sponsors of the football club. And what they'll do is they'll just pick someone who's already part of the clique, Lawrence. Someone who already lives and breathes what they believe, who is already part of the echo chamber. So it's not going to be good enough. You might find somebody who's a wee bit better when it comes to being a CEO, but then the narrative remains the same, the culture remains the same, and it's still an echo chamber, and there's still a puppet master, and we all know who that is. So I think the change has to be bigger than that, Lawrence. It's not just about changing a couple of personnel. Changing a couple of jobs isn't going to do the job.
Well, so I don't know how hands-on Dermot Desmond is. We hear stories about signing players. That's not right. You wonder why the guy that proved his sale at Scottish Rugby came in, and what a transfer window. The manager was getting in players quickly, players he wanted. Shocking stuff. Do you sign players the manager wants or players he doesn't want? There's another question for the kind of primary school age kids. It's not hard. Sign the players the manager wants. Didn't last long. Dermot's got to look at it going, look, undoubtedly, we're well run financially. We're dominant in Scotland. Is that by default? Is this department actually functioning properly? Are they delivering a football team on the park that can compete in Europe? Or I think he's on record as saying our aim is simply to be better than last year. So for his own measure, are they delivering a team that's better year on year? Certainly not this year. And it looks like they didn't even try. And you're going, well, Dermot, it's kind of August and the season runs to May and they've already failed the target. If this isn't time for action, when is?
Well, it's definitely time for action. I mean, I was reading this morning, with interest rather, that there's a different, more modern approach. We talk about the board, and I was reading this morning about having each member of the board a pillar, if you like, without the corporate jargon here, who is almost, as well as working with the head of a department, he is the guy in the boardroom who is fighting for each individual strand of the business. You know, how can we improve all these, I think you call them silos in the corporate world, but how can you improve the academy? How can you improve recruitment? How can you improve the media? How can you improve PR and communications? And it's all about having more of an oversight. What are the board doing? You know, all these things about, oh yeah, you know, the media has commoditized the transfer window. It's all about clicks. No, I mean, we have always covered it, Liam. The media has always covered transfer windows. We've always had the camera, you know, peering into the car where Harry Redknapp's leaving the training. That's always been there. This isn't something new. It's not a new phenomenon. And I just think we need to be better prepared so that when it comes to the transfer window, Lawrence, and you have one guy running the show and that one guy can't answer every single phone call. It's like, why are we in that position? We know how busy this is. So the departments themselves, I think, need to be stronger. They need to have stronger heads of department. Who is it? Yeah, before it goes out, the CEO will look at it and sign it off. But who in the PR team actually thought that that statement was going to curry any kind of favour? You know, that was a PR disaster. One of the worst that I can imagine. One of the worst that I can refer to in terms of not just Celtic history, but Scottish football history. That is the worst statement I can ever remember in Scottish football.
Sneaking it out. Nobody willing to sign it. I think I spoke last week. After we went out to Champions League, within 2 days, the board should have been convened for an emergency meeting to say, what's went wrong here? Yep. Why weren't the players in? We've still got time to put this right for this season. You know, what's the roadblocks? Let's get it done. Doesn't look as if that happened, or if it did happen, whatever they planned was completely ineffectual. So, if these board members thinking they're bringing anything at all to the club, from the outside looking at them, they're completely wrong. They're bringing nothing.
No, absolutely not.
There doesn't seem to be any meaningful address of the manager's concerns about signings, the captain's concerns about signings, or the fans' concerns about signings. So you're thinking you've got the team led by the captain, you've got the management led by Brendan, and you've got the fans all saying, we need more signings in. At one part of to Celtic's just unable or unwilling to deliver. And to be honest, the more you look at this, it looks like they're just unwilling. You know.
Well, I go back, Lawrence, to the comments made by the former chairman. And that was obviously Ian Bankier. And you remember the comments that he was talking about. He made them at the AGM, and he made the comment in relation to how difficult it was for a club like Celtic to compete in Europe. So that, for me, showed you the attitude within the boardroom at that point. What's changed since then? Well, Peter Lawwell's still... Sorry?
It doesn't matter if it's difficult or not. You've got to try.
Yeah, this was the issue. This was the issue. It was almost as if it's too difficult, so why bother? You know, why bother? Let's just be happy with all the scraps that we might get from it, Lawrence. Every now and again, we'll have a great European night. That was their attitude, right? And what's changed in terms of personnel is not much. So Bankier's out and Peter Lawwell's in his place. So obviously Michael Nicholson then steps into the CEO's position. I know that happened the other way around. But no much has changed. So in terms of culture, in terms of the echo chamber, that's not changed. And I doubt that their attitude towards it has changed either. And when you read that statement, so I think that loud and clear shows that their attitude is very much that, you know, we as a football club should be happy where we are. And you as a fan base, you should be happy where you are as well. There's been an uprising. So already the letter was out there. After the response to that letter by the club, there's been a further uprising. We're now sitting at, I think it was the last count, it was touching 500 different groups have signed the open letter. Now, by the way, going back to the Celtic Supporters Association, those in charge of the association perhaps wanted a different outcome and wanted to side with the board, as they always do, Lawrence, but they were vetoed, they were voted against by the actual member clubs, the CSCs who are part of the association. So everybody's kind of firing, singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were, in relation to the fan groups coming together. The big question now, before we get onto the football, is what happens next? Because there is a survey that's been shared around, and a lot of people, and by the way, there has been an incredible uptake in the survey, to the point where the amount of people who's filled this survey in is, I think, as far as I'm aware, more than filled the official survey in for Celtic Football Club. So that shows you the emotion at the moment that is running so high, Lawrence, that so many people have answered that call. And the percentages, once they are released, will be unbelievably against the board, and very much in favour of action by the Celtic movement, the fan movement, as yet, unnamed, as yet without a figurehead. It's a movement, it's a coming together. So what's happening now is the fan groups, representatives of as many of the fan groups who are on that open letter as possible, will be meeting. Tomorrow there is going to be a meeting of minds, if you like, whereby we are going to go through the survey. We're going to go through the results of that survey, and we're going to be looking at next steps for the fan movement. So for me, that's a huge positive. The other thing I would like to say is tomorrow, for This Is Acsom, we are going to be speaking to David Lowe. We're going to get a blow-by-blow update, Lawrence, in respect of the shareholder approach of what David, Peter, and Duncan Smiley had previously gone to the Celtic Trust to see if they could work together. It may well be that this is a separate movement, and that's fine, and that can work as well. That's what happened the last time the fans came together. There was things happening in the background in terms of Fergus and David and Brian Dempsey and other people who were involved. So that's all positive, and we will be reporting blow by blow on a Celtic State of Mind. The big question now, we know what the fans are now doing in response to the Celtic statement, Lawrence. What does the club do next?
What they should be doing is getting a crisis manager in. They should recognise they're in crisis at this moment in time. Prior to this, they should have a communication strategy that professionally answers these concerns, diffuses the situation, buys them some time. Celtic won't be doing any of those things. They'll probably be sitting wondering, we gave you a letter Saturday, didn't you understand it? They'll probably say, do you want to just reissue the same letter? They're obviously not clever enough to read it. Let's just shove out the same letter again. That's what I expect will probably come from the club.
Do you think? And I mean, if that's the case, Lawrence, by the way, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but if that's the case, what does that do? I mean, Steve McGowan spoke about tipping paraffin into a blazing bin fire. That's what the statement did. If they basically think, oh, well, we're giving you the statement, like it or lump it, what next? I mean, if the strength of feeling among Celtic fan groups is that everybody's getting behind this open letter now, everybody's getting behind this movement, which is coming together, very naturally coming together as a hub, and the club don't respond. I mean, the response to that then is going to be even more vehement, isn't it? I mean, we're not on this show. We're absolutely, it gets to the point where protests can be made. I think the fans have got to be noisy about this. We've got to have protests, absolutely 100%. A lot of people are coming in the comments here. We've got Uriah Heap. He's made his own decision, he or she, sorry. As a pensioner, I could only stop paying for Celtic TV, and the pools both have been cancelled. Individuals are making their own choices as to how they're going to move forward with the club until change happens, Lawrence.
Yeah, listen, hopefully the groups come together and get a strategy that, we realise that Celtic still needs to remain the dominant force financially. Can we target the likes of Adidas, put a boycott of all Adidas products by Celtic fans, not just the Celtic merchandise, between now and the end of January? Approach it, because if they won't listen to us, maybe they'll listen to their main sponsor. I mean, when was the last time Michael Nicholson actually came out and addressed the fans, made a public statement?
It doesn't happen. It simply doesn't happen.
So Celtic have got, see when they complain, we've only got 30, there's 100 people down at EPL clubs. There's only 30 of us. 10:30 used to use ChatGPT. Geez, one person could have done that. They're just completely detached. There's 30 full-time people there in your PR and media.
I'll tell you something, Lawrence. I said this yesterday. This came up yesterday, right? In relation to our ability as an independent, right, non-backed financially platform, our ability to go live every single day, right? Now, what we're going to do, because at the moment it's a live stream, and you've seen some of the issues that can arise with that. You know, 2 of our guys have dropped out from different areas, and that's what happens with live streams. What we're setting up on Acsom is we're setting up what we do right now in a studio as a live broadcast. So it's not a dial-in. So the people who are involved in the discussion will be in the same room and will be broadcasting live through the correct systems, really, the correct equipment. And anything can happen with networks and Wi-Fi's and all that. It can happen to Sky Sports. It might happen when we're in the studio. But what we are doing there on a no budget, if you like, Lawrence, is showing what can be done with virtually nothing at that stage, and what can be done, like a drop in the ocean when you're talking budget, Lawrence, right? As a football club, as big as Celtic, with the turnover that Celtic has, to then say, we've only got 30. I'll tell you what, I was surprised that you've got 30 people working in your media team. When I looked at your output, couldn't believe you've got as many as 30 when I looked at your output.
Do you know what their major issue is? We've only got 30. The problem is, we could give you another 30. It's your mindset, it's not right.
It's your mindset.
This is what you're getting out of 30. There's no point you giving you more. You're not doing it right. You're issuing statements that inflame the fans. You've got no crisis management plan in place. How often do you generally engage with the fans? Oh, we've done a survey. Oh, it's the wrong format. Can't quite release it.
Well, this survey, Lawrence, that the findings of the survey will be revealed in the meeting tomorrow, right? That survey came out a few days ago. I'm talking about the fan survey.
I'm talking about Celtic survey.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Well, this has been turned around in days. And the amount of people that have actually contributed to the survey exceeds the one that the club did. And the club have never made the findings known.
It's probably because they don't like them. They're going, right, this isn't... How can we skew this? How can we reinterpret this survey? Because guys obviously filled out, don't know what they're doing. They think we're daft and we're not doing a good job. Everybody's telling you you're not doing a good job. Maybe you aren't.
I know. It's like, we'll do it again until we get the results we want.
I think the guys in the boardroom think they're scoring the goals. I think that, that win the trophies.
I know.
Making the tackles.
Do they get the medals? Do they get medals as well? I want them all to turn up in full kits for the next presentation to get their medals, because they think they've scored the goals. They really do. But Lawrence, the point I was making there, people think, but what can we do? And where does this go? I'm going to use your Adidas one as an example, just as an example, right? So you get, let's say, I'm just going to pull a figure out the air, right? You say you get 50,000 people filling out a survey, right? And in that survey, a huge percentage, a huge majority of people agree to what you just suggested there, Lawrence, right? You've then got a very good cross-section of the Celtic fan base to then go to the club and say, listen, this is what we've got here, right? We've got the power to push the button on this. So you're going to have to change. You're going to have to engage with us.
I don't know what systems they're using, but from that, I know they captured my email address. I'm assuming they captured everybody's. If people were in favour of approaching Adidas, I'm sure they've got an email address where they generally engage with their customers and take notice of what they're saying. It wouldn't be that hard to send one email to everybody that completed the survey saying, going forward this to Adidas. This is what you're going to do, and these are our aims.
Or we the undersigned. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Adidas would set up and say, no, you don't want to do we the undersigned. You want the 50,000 different emails going to Adidas. Handling one email's a good bit of fun. Handling 50,000. Adidas be like, what is going on here? These are
for me, these are the things that can happen from the survey and people coming together, and we'll report on this after tomorrow's meeting. Of course, it's tomorrow night, so we'll be reporting it on Thursday. I want to talk a bit about, because obviously we do have games coming up. There is that old thing called football. Yeah. Back at training, everyone will have seen, and I've used it in the thumbnail here, Brendan Rodgers back at training, big smiles.
They all looked happy, didn't they?
They're all in the room. And what I've been saying here, obviously, last week there was like real, concerns, and there was gossip and there was speculation about, the gaffer might just chuck this. And I remember saying at the time, if he did, I wouldn't blame him. I didn't want him to. I really didn't. But I would not blame Brendan Rodgers for walking last week. To the point that when we did this as Acsom and we recorded it with Chris and Jim, I said to the guys, look, we're recording this on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. It was Tuesday, actually. if Brendan Rodgers leaves the building this week and this goes out on Friday at a certain date, we're going to have a section talking about the departure of Brendan Rodgers. That's how serious we took it. We never put it out there. I never heard it from a good source, but it was chat. It was discussed at the point. So he's in the building. And my take on this, Lawrence, is that really he needs to somehow try and shut out the chaos, shut out all the noise that's happening at the football club, have an inner sanctum where he's got his squad of players, try to keep that squad happy, even though some of them aren't in the Europa League squad, even though Yang thought he was out the door, even though Maeda has spoken about leaving the football club, somehow he's got to try and galvanise that group of players, bring them all together, and hopefully be able, right, to, I think, wring out as much success as he can from the rest of this season. Because if Brendan Rodgers was to leave, and I've seen all the rumours and I've seen all the names linked to Celtic and all that, if he was to leave, in my view, Lawrence, it could send this club into a tailspin.
I don't think Rodgers will leave. I think he was an absolute pariah last time he left. And I think that stung. You know, he come back to Celtic funerals and he was shunned at them. You know, in Celtic, you know, Brendan's on record, he was born into Celtic. I think that's absolutely kind of scarred him, and he doesn't want that to happen again. He's on record saying it, he'll see out his 3 years. The struggle that's going on, is it the same struggle that went on before? Is it the same people he was battling his first time round that he's now battling? Because I tell you what, if they think their actions turned Brendan Rodgers into a pariah last time, I don't think they've seen anything yet, because I think Brendan will knuckle down. I think he'll be vocal. And I don't think he'll be a pariah when he leaves, but certain other people will.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's one of these things in relation to Brendan Rodgers. We still have 4 tournaments to compete in this season. We're sitting top of the league. You know, the football's not been great. It's not been a tremendous start to the season. But I'm going to go back to what Jim said last week. It's all about backing the team. And obviously we will continually challenge this board of directors. We will give you an update as soon as we've got one tomorrow night, in and around the fan movement and the meeting that's happening tomorrow. And we'll give you an update as soon as we possibly can, in depth. We will also be speaking to David Lowe tomorrow. I won't wait until Friday to put that episode out. That'll go out on the channel as soon as it's edited. We'll put it out there. It's all about sharing communication, sharing information, and we'll continue to do that. Well over 3,000 on the live chat today. I know a lot of people are frustrated. They want answers. They want a what next. We'll try and supply that on a daily basis. We are constantly engaging with different players and stakeholders in this, and we will update you as much as we possibly can. If you want to take your mind off the madness and the chaos, and you want to come along and listen to some tales about when we were a European force, I'm doing a gig on Friday night with the Seville boys in Greenock. If you're in the area, I know that we do have a lot of listeners from that area. There are still tickets available. The link is underneath this video. I'm going to Madrid near the end of this season to do an Acsom event over there. And then I've been chasing this guy for a long, long time, probably 3 years, Lawrence. I've been talking to you about him. We managed to get Bruni to agree to come and do an Acsom gig. Listen, I'll tell you what, it will take your mind off things, if nothing else. What I would say is the Bruni gig's in December, and within 48 hours, we'd already sold 50%. So it's going to be a popular one. It will sell out if you want to come along and see Bruni. Yes, I will introduce him to do the Bruni, and that will get the crowd going, I'm pretty sure. It takes your mind off things a wee bit.
But listen, I'll give us maybe kind of an hour or two's respite, but yeah, I don't think the board realise how focused the fan base are.
No, absolutely.
You know, this isn't a case, you know, we'll get to January and we'll buy one player. That'll keep them happy. Maybe buy 2. It's not good enough anymore. They want to be world class. They want to improve season on season. They're demonstrating failing their own targets that they set. You know, in any other business, if you continually fail your targets, you're heading for the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a corporate organisation, Lawrence, and they do, or they should, operate in that manner. I mean, obviously, we will be talking about the upcoming fixtures as well. Celtic, obviously, our next fixture, Sunday the 14th of September against Kilmarnock away from home. You look at that team that started against Bayern Munich: Schmeichel, Johnson, Schlupp, Carter, Vickers and Trusty, Engels, McGregor, Hatate, Kuhn, Maeda and Jota. I would start as many of those players as I possibly could from here on in. I would bring Kieran Tierney into that starting 11. I think Iheanacho will be getting game time as well. I think he's looking fit.
That left back that come on for KT, I'd be starting him ahead of KT. KT's not giving us too much. Scales was man of the match at Ibrox. I wouldn't be dropping him for Trusty.
Tierney needs the games though, mate. That Rodgers has spoken
the
about
games don't seem to be doing anything for him. You're looking and going, how many games does he get? Because he's looking like an empty jersey just now. Listen, hopefully the break does him good. They're working on his fitness, but right now, that boy that came on, I thought when he came on, we had a bit of energy. It quietened things on that side in terms of their attacks, quietened down.
The sports science guys would probably say he's not played enough football either, Sirachi. But it's a better option than what we've been doing. The problem I've got in terms of being a better option as a backup, that is the problem I've got is the short-termism of the last three guys that were brought in. Baye, Schlupp, and Sirachi.
I don't know how much he's cost, but the manager was on record saying, "I want to keep Greg Taylor."
I know.
And you can't deny it. It'll look as if we've missed him this season.
Well, Tierney, I think we're going to be discussing him all season, and I wouldn't be so ruthless at this stage to remove him from the starting 11. But again, that's something we'll talk about leading up to the Killie game. We've got two new left wingers. Who plays right wing? One of them will.
Listen, see Balaklisha at Ibrox. He's got to flight the ball right. He's judged it. He's pulled the ball down. Tavernier's caught under it, not getting the ball back into him. It looks like Balaklisha's going straight through and goal.
Yeah.
That if gives a.
I know.
There's no foul there. And
that's the moment. That's the moment.
That's a straight moment.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're looking good, right? Our player's got control of the ball. He's positioned himself right. He's read the flight right. I don't know if he's their captain or not anymore, but he's struggling. He's not getting the ball. He's run backwards into our player, and it's somehow he gets a foul.
Of course he does.
Decision.
Of course he does. And that could change. That could have changed a lot of things in respect to Balakwisha getting off to a flying start as well. But yeah, I'm going to be interested to see who starts at right wing, because we're at a transfer window and they're still not stapled on starter at right wing. We've got James Forrest, we've got Yang who wanted to leave in that window, and we've brought in two left wingers who can play on the right. So it'll be interesting to see. For me, Nygren certainly doesn't start on the right. He's a far better
midfielder. Who plays through the forward? Who plays centre forward?
Iheanacho.
You think you'll start him? Give me the rest.
I actually do. I mean, Maida might even start back on the left. But I do think Iheanacho is going to be Brendan's man. I think he's a guy that
three left wingers.
No, he's not going to change shape. He's rigid. He's rigid.
Listen, I thought Nygren looked okay. Probably okay for Scotland, the right wing. So maybe Nygren's your guy out in the ring. I think it's up to Brendan to motivate Yang. Really, Jamesy will give us everything he's got. He's just getting older, isn't he? If James is a man, James is a man. No problem with that.
He should impact
like Yang. Or listen, we've been told both of these guys can play. Right wing. Hopefully, the scouts have done their job right, and they can.
They've got to, because otherwise it's lopsided if they don't.
Yep.
But in respect to Yang, he's here until January unless he goes to one of the other open markets. There's still a couple of markets open at the moment. Belgium not being one of them. That closed yesterday.
Could you imagine Brendan if they sold Yang now? He'd be like, geez, not only have you not brought on enough, you're still selling. Surely the board would.
Nothing surprises me. No, Lawrence. Nothing surprises me. Listen,
I'm with you. I'd start Iheanacho up front.
I would. Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be pushing Callum further forward, freshen it up a bit. Engels is the 6, and probably stick with Hattati further forward with Callum.
Well, we shall see. We've digressed because we're now talking about football, Lawrence. I mean, how on earth have we got into the subject of football?
I know. The Celtic board won't know what's happening. Those guys are talking about players on the park. Imagine players on the park.
Well, we were able to chew the fat there as if we had no worries and concerns in our life, right? That was quite enjoyable for the last 5 minutes. Thank you, every single one of you, 3,000 strong. Come back, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up on the video, do all the good stuff. to keep Acsom firing on all cylinders, and we'll keep coming back every single day and updating you as best as we possibly can. I want to dig in to the excuse of the sustainability rules for UEFA. I'm going to try and get as much information as I can on that to see how far away we are. I know the Swiss Ramble did a very good article on it last year saying we were nowhere near having a concern with regards to these regulations. What on earth was the club talking about in their statement? We'll do a wee bit more digging. We'll talk to financial guys to get the figures. And I know this is a moving target all the time, isn't it, Lawrence? But in terms of a football club, they should know where they are when it comes to the sustainability rules.
100%. Listen, we're nowhere near touching them. You know, they were going to spend over 10 million kind of in the last day of the transfer window that they didn't spend. We know we're nowhere near touching them. They know what they're nowhere near touching them. How do you think we get 100 million in the bank? And see that line, it's for sustainability and investment in infrastructure. But we're not building a hotel, the museum, or addressing the issues with the main stand.
No, that was disappointing.
What are you going to do with it then?
That was disappointing. What you're going to do with it is you're going to probably eat into it because of your inability to get to the Champions League over the next 5 seasons. That's probably their plan, and that's no plan whatsoever. But in relation to the main stand,
you can eat into it.
Not for transfers though, but just for other running losses at the football club. You know, so this is the rainy day fund, and as Jungle Line keeps saying, they created the rainy day.
Yep, 100%. But does that mean that you can use it then? You know what I mean? You could have used it now. You don't need to wait until you're making a loss to use it. In relation to FSR, you could absolutely use some of it.
But that goes back to this cautious approach, isn't it? Far too cautious. But in relation, that was a big disappointment, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again later on. The big disappointment from the minutes was the fact that they confirmed that whilst playing football in Scotland, they will not rebuild the main stand.
Crazy.
They confirmed that.
You know, you had Tom Grant on speaking about his time with Fergus and said, look, this was only stage one.
I know.
That's the basics of a stadium. We were going to improve that, make it look better, more facilities for fans. Not happening. We're putting marquees up in a car park for Champions League. Well, I guess they've solved that problem because we don't have Champions League, so we don't need the marquee. You know what I mean? Everybody can see the main stand needs done. While we're in SPFL, we'll never do it.
The facilities.
Worked in 1929.
But even that, Lawrence, talking about Welsh in the SPFL, right? Okay, but in terms of this, new league that there was always talk of, right back to when Brian Dempsey was doing his speech for the Save Our Celts, which we shared on the channel. There's been talk about British leagues. There's been talk about transatlantic leagues. Teaming up with Benelux and all these teams and coming together that way. You've got it. The Champions League is that league. That's your league. The way that they've changed it, the way that you can tap into more fixtures, right, and more money, that's as good as it's going to get. You've seen the other year there, a couple of years ago, when they tried to have this Super League. You've seen how that was received. This is it, right? So in terms of we'll never do it while we're in the SPFL because it's not viable. Lawrence, if you were playing Champions League football every season, which we should be, based on the conversation we've just had for the last 1.25 hours, then it would be viable. It would be viable to do it.
Did the price at about the 100 million mark? Sorry, I thought you said we make 40 million profit from the champion. 2.5 seasons in the Champions League, it would pay for it. And that's with the current capacity and the current hospitality. But you'd actually be increasing the capacity and increasing your hospitality often, and you'd be saving on the rent of a tent as well.
And also, as well as paying less corporation tax for the spend, obviously because of the amount of profit we make, you don't have to just save it up. You're not in a situation where you can't get credit or you can't do a share issue. There's other ways to finance it.
But listen, you're looking at in Fergus, the dominance comes from Fergus giving us 10,000 extra seats. And they're going to squander that. Why don't they do the same and give us another 10,000 extra seats?
They'll only do that if Ibrox increases their capacity, because we're basically focused on what Rangers do and whatever guys they are in. Whatever they do, we are reacting. We're not being proactive. It's so basic.
I'll leave out Angie's, but when you're building your house, you don't look at your neighbours. You build the best house you can. And that's what we should be doing. And the board, they're devoid of that ambition.
No, they don't have the ambition. It's stale. Listen, we could go on all day and we'd probably absolutely could. I mean, it's 1.25 hours already. Thanks everybody for sticking around. It's an absolute pleasure as always to chat to Lawrence. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, get involved, click all the good links underneath this video, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 12:30 on A Celtic State of Mind.